Alright, in this module we look at the task of inserting text into your document, and if you've used a word processor before, this is probably not going to present any kind of challenge whatsoever, because it's just simply a matter of using your mouse to select the insertion points, say at the beginning of the sentence, or you can certainly use your keyboard to move around, and then you start typing, and there is your text. Notice also that when you type text, that Word is kind enough to use the formatting of whatever is surrounding that text. So if we're in this paragraph, which is the formatting is heading 2 as far as the style goes, and if I type a new word, then it's going to use that same formatting that is defined by the style of heading 2. If I were to type here, it would use heading 1. This uses the appropriate formatting as you have just seen. Now, again, you may be thinking, well, anybody if you don't know how to do that, then you have no business using a word processor, and you probably are right. But there are also some ways that we can govern this. For example, if we want to make a selection of a word and then start typing like that, it replaces whatever we just selected. And there's actually some ways that you can manipulate that, and that's really the general purpose of this module. You'll also see that if you're dealing with templates as well. As I grab one of my templates here, how about that one? So you saw this previously in the previous module. So if we make a selection, if we're dealing with a template and we type the body of a report, anything that has that gray shading, or in this case a blue background, once we start typing a word, it will replace whatever is selected there. So once again, I want to point out that that is governed by some of your word options, and we'll click on the Office button here in the upper left hand corner, and then click on the Word Options button. That brings up this dialog box. And this time look at the Advanced Settings here. And the Advanced Settings is where you're looking for a section called Editing Options. And this is the section that has the options that control what we just saw there. For example, the replacing of selecting text is done because this is a checked option by default. So if you don't want that behavior to take place, uncheck that checkbox. Selection options, so if I'm selecting with the mouse, it automatically selects the entire word. That is also another default behavior that helps you not have to be as precise with the mouse as you're selecting words or groups of words in your document. The other very interesting thing that I want to point out, and this is what makes this module worthwhile, is this one at the bottom. You can look at the other ones and figure out what they mean pretty much on your own, but this is the one that I want to point out. Enable click and type. This is another default option that is very interesting and very handy, and I'll show you exactly what I mean here. So just I want to point out that it's there. I don't have to reconfigure it or anything, but I can use it by grabbing my document again, and let's say that I have a picture in my document that I've inserted. Now, if I just click down here and set my insertion point, it sets the insertion point at the end of the picture. It treats the picture in line with text, and so it just essentially, Word treats that picture as another character of text. And again, you'll see later on in this tutorial how to change that behavior and how to change where and how your pictures look in the document. But again, I just want to point out that the default is that if I set my insertion point, it goes right there to essentially the end of that paragraph or the end of that sentence, and that sentence is represented by a picture. Click and type is this. Rather than a single click, why don't I double click? And when I double click, there, apparently I didn't double click fast enough. There is the behavior of click and type. So now I can do this. This is a whale, period. So that's the behavior of the click and type, and it lets you just pretty much place your text where you want to rather than where Word suggests. Again, if I select up here, it's going to say, okay, you want to go to the end of this paragraph. But if I do click and type, it'll let me click and put new text in pretty much wherever I want to. So keep that in mind as you're using Word, as you're inserting new text, and you should be in good shape.